All right, so for this video, I'm going to be talking about specifically how to assemble the puzzle cube. So in the past, whenever you've gone to new, you had to select the standard IPT because you're making just individual parts. Now that you have made all 5 of your parts, you now need to assemble them. And to do that, you're going to use standard IAM. IAM stands for Inventor Assembly. So I'm going to select that and then hit create. When this opens up, I have my ribbon across the top, the model browser on the left-hand side, just like before, and I want to place my parts. So you can hit this down arrow and you have several options. Place is all you need. So I'm going to click on place. You should be in your project folder. If you are not in your project folder, your parts will not show up in this folder view here. And so I go through, I've got all 5 of my parts. I'm going to go ahead and open up part number 1, which is my orange part. And I can place it as many times as I need to. I can place it 1,000 times, place it 4 times. It really doesn't matter. But in this case, each one of these parts is individual, so I only need 1. I would also mention that it is important at this step to make sure that your parts are colored different colors. If they're all just gray, it makes it very difficult to assemble your puzzle cube because then it just turns into one gray block. So I've got my first part. I'm going to go ahead and place my second part, place that out. I only need 1 of them, so I'm going to right click and say OK. And I would recommend that you have one of your puzzle pieces grounded so it can't move around in space. So it's kind of like your keystone. So right now I have this orange part and my pink part, and they can freely move in this white space. So I'm going to right click on my orange part and click on grounded so that it does not move at all. You can see that it's got that little pin icon on top of it. Whereas my pink part, I can still move around freely. It's important to note that if your part gets placed in this space and it is not oriented correctly, don't worry about it because it will, as we go through the constraining process, that will fix it. So the tool that you need is constrain. A constraint is a limitation on geometry, and so that's what we're doing is we're limiting the geometry for each one of these parts to essentially assemble it all together. And for this project, luckily, you only need to use mate and flush. Mate, you can think of that as taking 2 surfaces and gluing them together, and then you have flush where you're putting 2 surfaces in line with each other. And so I'll demonstrate that to show you the difference. So I want to glue mate, and I'm hitting shift on the keyboard and the scrolling wheel to free rotate. I want to glue this surface to this surface, and so it snaps into place. And at this point, this is a good representation of what flush is going to do. I want this pink surface to be in line with this orange surface. Right now it's not, so I'm going to switch over to flush, and I'm going to flush those together. So now I've got it in line. I've got 2 constraints on my geometry, so when I have 2 constraints, I'll be able to move it in one direction. So it's mated to the surface and it's also flushed. I need to add one more constraint, which will be mate, because I need to glue the surface to this bottom part of the L. Apply. There we go. So now this is 1 unit. It's my for the beginning of my assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and place my next part. Let's see, part number, trying to figure out the best order. Probably the screen piece right here. Right click, say OK. I'm pretty good with that. Constrain. I want to glue this surface to this surface. That looks good. Apply. Going to mate this surface to this inside of the pink. Apply. And you can see that I'm not quite in line how I need to be, so I'm going to use flush. I'm going to flush these together. Apply. All right, so far so good. So I've got 3 out of my 5 parts. Go ahead and place the next one. And it might take a couple tries to get this laid out how you need it. And I will show you how to delete out constraints. So if you do mess up, if you come over here to this browser, you can find which constraint is not agreeing with your total assembly, and you can right click on delete it. Or if you hold down shift on the keyboard, you can select all of them or multiples and then delete it that way. But so far I'm making it fine, so I'm going to keep going. Constrain. I want to glue this surface to this surface. Apply. I'm going to flush this surface to this surface. Apply. And I'm going to look and see where I want to go now. I think one more flush to get this in line with the orange. I think that's going to be my next move. So flush, orange, blue, apply. So there we go. Nearly done. Place once again, and looks like I need this dark blue piece. Right click, say OK. Constrain, and I'm going to glue this surface to this surface. Apply. I'm going to flush these together. Apply. Let's see where I want to go next. I think I want to glue those two surfaces. So I'm going to glue this surface to the surface. Apply. Okay, so at this point, the puzzle cube has been completely assembled. Make sure that you save this. So you can go to File, Save As if you've never saved it before, and you can save it as your cube assembly.